In the classic Sidney Poitier film, In the Heat of the Night, it was so unseasonably cold during the shooting that they had to chew on ice chips between takes so that the fogging of their breath wouldn't distract from the veracity of the film. This is a fact I learned from my father, who is a classic film expert, and I thought it was a little fact that I could just store in the back of my brain and bring out at parties. I never thought it would be germane. It's very cold in Vermont right now. Welcome to Ask the Meadmaker, where I, Ricky the Meadmaker, answer your questions about mead making, mead drinking, mead brewing, and really any question you're willing to send to me. Our first question this week comes from Laughing Dragon Meadery, who wants to know what acid blend is and how is it used in mead. Acid blend is exactly what you think it is, unless you're part of the drug scene late 60s, early 70s, in which case it's very much not what you're thinking. But acid blend in winemaking, mead making, and on rare occasion, beer making, is a combination of chemicals that, when added to water, release their hydrogen ion, creating an acid and bringing the pH down. The difference between something like pure citric acid and acid blend is acid blend tends to give a more complex and balanced acidity, whereas citric acid is really just used for adjusting the pH. So if you have a mead that lacks that very difficult to define term brightness, a little bit of acid blend can go a long way. Our next question comes from Mark in Poland, and he's having a problem, which is that he lives in Poland, which is not generally speaking a problem. It is a problem for Mark, who likes American craft mead, so he keeps flying over here, buying a bunch, taking it back, and then drinking it all. So he's decided what he's going to do is he's going to make it himself, which is arguably vastly less expensive than his current system. The problem he's running into is it's too yeasty, and he wants to know, he's tried different yeasts, he's tried different nutrients. Should he rack it off the yeast, siphon it off, then put it back into a vessel, then carbonate it? The answer is, chances are very good that that yeasty flavor is actually coming from too little yeast. The healthier the fermentation, which means more yeast, the less yeasty flavor you usually get. This has to do with the way that yeast uptakes things out of solution and puts them back in when it's under stress. Our next question comes from Cody, and I am 95% certain I know what he's asking, but there is a 5% chance that I absolutely positively don't. I think he has a fermentation chamber ready chest freezer. Basically, as a chest freezer, he wants to add a heating element of some sort and a temperature controller to maintain his temperature up and down. The reason I'm confused is he says he has a half chest freezer? So I don't know if this was like some terrible white elephant gift you got, because if you cut a chest freezer in half, the coils wrap around it, and it just wouldn't work. So if that is what you have, throw it away. If it's not what you have, go for it. Ian is having trouble making mead, only because it's getting too expensive. He wants to use raw honey, but raw honey is costly, and he wants to know how to get cheaper raw honey that's still very good. As he says, garbage in, garbage out. So, the answer is, make friends with a beekeeper. Our last question comes from Colin, and Colin, I am confused about your question. You said, I used 76 ounces of mead in a 1.5 gallon batch, and I don't know what that means, but there is a part of your question that does make sense, and that is that you used D47, and it's off to the races, but your hydrometer said that you're expecting 22% alcohol, which is extremely high, and you wanted to know, is there any way to prevent fusels? Fusels are alcohols that are unpleasant to humans. Fusel alcohol is actually redundant. It's German for bad-tasting alcohol, but probably not. A lot of fusel production happens early on and as the alcohol content gets higher, so it's possible just pouring more yeast in there will help. But once fusels are produced, there's not much you can do to get them back out, short of distilling it, which is unfortunately illegal in the United States. So, the good news is, if you live somewhere else or have no respect for the law of the land, there is an option for getting fusels out of your mead. Otherwise, cross your fingers and give it to your most intoxicated friends. That's our last question this week. Keep sending them, and I'll get to them as soon as possible. Cheers.